Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm joined today by Sarah Mitchell, head of our documentation department. Today, Sarah will be giving us a short demonstration, I believe using JavaScript Actions, but we're also here to answer your questions. And you can type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Sarah, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can.
So yes, welcome everybody to today's demo and Q&A. We're going to be talking about JavaScript Actions today, but before we get into that, I wanted to just remind everyone about some imminent support changes. We are ending support for Windows 8.1 and Windows Server 2012 R2 starting on the 1st of July, which is very soon. It's 23rd of June already. So if you are running on these operating systems, we strongly recommend you upgrade to Windows 10, which you must keep up to date with the current updates and everything. And if you're running Windows Server, if Windows Server 2016 or newer is fine for upgrade. And all this really means is that we aren't supporting Alpha Anywhere running on these two operating systems anymore. And it should go without saying, but operating systems that are older than these ones are also no longer supported. And then the other reminder I wanted to give everyone was DevCon 2021 is coming up soon, October 5th through 8th. It's a 4-day virtual conference, same as last year, slightly longer. You can register on our website. I strongly encourage you to sign up if you haven't done so yet and you want to go. Our ticket prices right now are, I believe, $399, which is $400 discount off of the full price, which we will be raising it to the full price before DevCon arrives. So if you want to save some money, register now. And Dave, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's right. What you said is perfect.
Awesome. So let's get into today's discussion. We're going to talk about JavaScript actions. And some of you on this call probably already know about these. For those of you who do not know about these, we're going to give you a little bit of background about why they exist. And that background starts with Action JavaScript. And Action JavaScript in Alpha Anywhere is a way to perform a task like sending an email, generating a report, displaying a message box, navigating your panels in your application, etc. That can be done using Action JavaScript. It's created with a Genie as opposed to writing code. So this is a low-code approach to add custom behaviors to your app. And the places where you can use Action JavaScript directly are in the control events for text boxes, checkboxes, etc. The JavaScript touch mouse pointer events, and also this other set down here just called JavaScript. These are the on click. These are mouse and keyboard events as effectively. The other ones are your touch on your mobile device. But in both of these scenarios for these properties, Action JavaScript is a primary way to set up your behavior. So you can use the Action JavaScript builder to add what you need. However, other client-side events that you're going to run across, like in the UX component or in a list control or in a view box, they are predominantly built with the JavaScript code editor. So you don't have that direct, immediate way of adding an action using the Action JavaScript builder. And so what was added to kind of help you continue to leverage the low-code capabilities of Alpha Anywhere without requiring you to know too much JavaScript was JavaScript Actions. And JavaScript Actions are a way to build up some behavior using Action JavaScript and then run it from any JavaScript code in your app. This right here is just a picture of the editor. And today it's mostly just going to be demoing that editor and taking a look at what it can do. So I believe you can still see my screen.
Yep,
so in a UX component, I've got a UX here. It's just a list with a detailed view. If we quickly preview this, just to show you what we've got. On the left-hand side here is my list. This is information from the customers table in the Northwind database. And on the right-hand side is where we're seeing details about that customer when we select it. So if we look here at our text controls, if we scroll down here on the side, here are those events I was telling you about. And if you go into like the click event, for example, your editing mode by default is going to be action JavaScript. If you click add a new action, you get the selection of all the actions that are available to you to add. Some of these only run on the client, some of them make callbacks to the server. There's a wide variety you can choose from. Some only work in a phone gap environment. So that is where you can build those up here. But if you're in a list and you want to do something in the list events, which you can either locate down here, there's a few listed in JavaScript render and runtime. Most often, though, going down here to the list events button opens up this view. These are all built just with JavaScript, so that can be a bit tough to try to figure out what you want to do if you're like, hey, I know there's this action over here in the action JavaScript that I want to run, but in this environment in the list, you don't have that directly. So instead, what you can do is actually just use this action JavaScript. You need to create a JavaScript action. And so if you're here in these editors, all the JavaScript editors usually have a button that looks like this somewhere on the screen. You also have a direct link over here on the left-hand side in the code section. It says JavaScript Actions, and they all open up this window where you can add an action. We'll just call this one message box for sure. We'll start with a simple message box here. Create a new action, give it a name, and then once you've created it, you want to edit it so you can add what you want to have happen. And now you can see we have that action JavaScript view like we saw with the text boxes. So let's just quickly make an action here. Let's call it, let's just use the message box action. We'll use an advanced message box. We'll edit this here. Keep all the other defaults. Click OK. Give it a description. And that's my action JavaScript defined. If I save this now, I have this thing, this JavaScript action that I can now reference in other places. And there are several ways that you can inject this code into your app to run. One way is to click this link here. It says click to see the JavaScript's code to invoke this action, which opens up this little box. And in here you can copy this text, close it, we'll click OK to save that, and then paste it where you want it to be displayed or where you want it to run. So this code here that was inserted is this is a placeholder for the UX components object that has a bunch of methods on it that you can call. One of those methods is called run action, and run action takes the name of a JavaScript action to invoke, and then that whole thing executes whatever you've put in it. Here's that same shortcut here if we wanted to insert it differently. Select it here. There's this checkbox. It says pass in a reference to the object that invokes the action. This might be needed in cases where you're displaying a message, like a drop-down message that needs to know where it is. So whatever is invoking it. And that, the only difference between that and this here, like you see here, we'll just go ahead and that will insert it for us, is it should. Usually what it does, I don't know why I didn't for this one, but it passes in this in many cases, which is just a reference to whatever is calling this. And this is a JavaScript object. It is contextually sensitive to wherever things are being invoked. So sometimes this is the actual HTML element, like the button object. Other times it might just be like the name of the function that called it. So there's a bit of complexity there that's going on. But in this case, because this is an on initialize, this isn't going to be anything particularly useful in this case. If it was in the button though, it could contain the button object itself. So anyway, that's run action. I'm just going to go back in here to show a few of the other options here. At any time, you can come in here and change what this does. And it's going to update everywhere it gets run. You don't have to go back and change your code where those have been implemented. So if you're someone who likes writing a lot of JavaScript, this is a way that you could implement this as text and put your stuff in here. You could also use JavaScript functions, which those of you who have strong JavaScript skills will probably prefer. But you can come in here, update it, disable it. You can copy and paste your actions, so they can be copied out of here, out of one component and pasted another way. So this is a way you could, in a way, import and export stuff that you've built in one app to another one. You can duplicate it, which will make another one. You're going to have to give it a unique name. So call message box 2. And that duplication, it's going to have all the same implementation as you had before. And then this other one here at the very end, it says create button to execute selected action. And this is new. This was added in the last release. And what this does is it adds a button to the clipboard, a button control. And when you do that, you can then come over here into the UX builder and do a Control V to paste it. And that adds that button. And if you open it up, it's running that action that you had selected. So I'm gonna clean things up here a bit, and we'll go through a case where which I imagine is probably common for some of you. Let's add a header up here. So control bar control, which is a way to add a header or footer to your app. You can add all sorts of items to it, buttons, disclosure buttons, edit buttons, but button in particular. When you add it, the way these are implemented is with a click action or an action. And actions are defined over in actions, and they all have a name, and they are also implemented with JavaScript. So here is a case where using that JavaScript action, I'll use this one here. Here's a case where having that knowledge and what you can do with JavaScript actions to get access to action JavaScript makes it very easy to do things that otherwise you might be reaching for a button for. But with the control bar, you can put this in here and still get the same effect. Let's go over to our layout here and quickly add this in here. Add a line, add our button, show message, click OK. Let's take a look at this. And I see that we have lots of questions popping up. So there's our message that we made with action JavaScript being called with the JavaScript action that we placed inside of a control bar button that we made. If I wanted to use this in multiple places, we'll go to JavaScript actions here. Let's select that. Let's create a button for that one. Click OK. Paste it in. Look at live preview. So we have show message up here. We have our play action button. It does the same thing in both places. So let's suppose we wanted to export our list. Oops, let's add a new action. We'll call it export. We'll edit this one. We'll add a new action. And let's see here. I believe it's this one. The list control actions, select our list. Select our list first. And we'll go in here and we'll look for there we go. Export list data to Excel or ASCII. Click OK. Let's take a look at our settings here. Let's call it my list. Export the data in the query. We'll keep the rest of the system defaults here. Click OK. All right. So I've created this export action. I can now go back into my control bar. Oop, I'm going to cancel and make sure I didn't open that twice. Double click to open it. If I go over here to items, I'll add a new item. Let's call this one export. We'll go over to our export on click that was generated for us. We'll get rid of the alert that was inserted for us. Go to action JavaScript, insert code to run action. We'll pick export, click OK. And the last thing we need to do is add this to our layout. So we'll edit this line, add it to the middle. Okay. So now I've added an export action to my app and I've put it in a control bar. So when we click this, it should generate an Excel file. And I may not be getting it, possibly because I'm running in live preview. Go back and double check to make sure I've got that set up right. Download. Yeah, I think it's because I'm not running in a web browser. Yeah, let's save that. Let's launch it in a browser. I might need to run it in Chrome. Here we go. So there we go. When I click export, there's my list. If we open this up in Excel, there's all the data that was exported. Now, maybe I want to provide this export option in a number of different views. I can add it everywhere I need it, and all I need to do is call that JavaScript action. If I wanted to extend this, I could add a new action. Maybe I want to display a message that the export has been done. Save that, save this. Let's run it in the browser again. and click the export. And there's that message I just added. Notice I didn't have to go and change anything in the control bar. So this is a really useful tool to learn and get under your tool belt. And it will definitely help you in places where you know you need to do something here, and there's an action JavaScript you know will do it, but you don't really see the obvious way to do it. Here, you don't see the obvious way to do it in code. And while you can go into action JavaScript and you can convert any of these actions into their code implementation, it's easiest if you can just leave it in the builder format so that you can come back and edit it later, extend it. In here, I know what this does because I've helped write a ton of examples for the A5 message box show JavaScript function. But for someone who doesn't feel comfortable with JavaScript enough to come in here and parse it or edit it, keeping it in the action JavaScript format is more than sufficient so that you can come in and make changes. So I went through this a bit fast. Were there any questions with regards to JavaScript actions that people might have, or even action JavaScript?
Let's take a look. Some of them are kind of generic, but let me see if I can find one specific. No, not specifically on this, but there are some questions on the actions that you've done. So I don't know if you want to go more into JavaScript actions or if you want to go into questions.
We can do both.
All right, then. So why don't we start with some questions then?
All right.
Question number 1. Must Excel be installed on the client's machine in order to open the generated report? The answer
to open
is,
it?
Yeah, to open it, yes. Yeah, you'd have to have
I mean, if you want to view it, you have to open it in something
or
that
some
open
other
an Excel
client
file.
software that'll do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to have something that can view it. You don't have to have Microsoft Excel. There are other softwares out there that can open XLSX files. I believe Google Docs can even open them. They're not gonna retain all the fancy stuff though.
Some of the formatting formulas and things like that may not.
Yeah. Some stuff may be lost when you go to other products, but there are other options out there for viewing the file. As far as generating it, I do not believe that is required to have Excel installed to generate it.
To generate it, no, I don't think it is at all, actually. The next question is, can you prevent the alert from displaying before the export is complete? I'm not sure if we know that or not. So you set up the export and then you set up a message that said,
I did.
It's done.
So no is the short answer in this particular example that I showed. What you would need to do is have some sort of event possibly in the after callback complete. So let's delete that real quick.
And while you're on that, can you talk a little bit about synchronicity and asynchronicity and why that might matter?
I could, yeah. So in the case of an Excel file being generated, what happens is your app makes a callback to the server and says, hey, I need an Excel file with this data in it, because all that Excel generation is done in XBasic. So the server gets an AJAX callback from your app and says, okay, I know how to do that. I'm going to go do that. And then it sends a response, which is ideally your file. Hopefully no problems occurred to prevent that from happening. And that whole chain of events has a bunch of hooks available to you on both the server side and the client side, where you can check in at various points, like can AJAX callback? Is the user allowed to make a callback at all? You can put stuff in here to say, oh, no, you can't do that. You've got something else going on over here that needs to be fixed. But one of the things you can look at is when that callback completes and it comes back to you. One of these, let me quickly check it. I think it's after AJAX callback complete. This client-side event gets called and it's given some information. It's given the XBasic function name that was called, the AJAX event that was called, the callback ID. So if we insert, let's try AJAX event here. Let's just do a alert of what that is. An alert is a JavaScript pop-up dialog. It's built into the platform, or not the platform, the language. And we'll go take a quick preview. Now this might pop up right when our app loads if any callbacks were required to set up this configuration. But if we do our export, ooh, did I not save it? I did save it. It should have said something. It didn't say anything. But my theory, if it was correct, was that should have told us what the event was. I might have to investigate a little bit more to figure out. Oh, I don't want that in quotes. To figure out if we do that. Opening Chrome. Close all these guys again, try again. I'm thinking through what might happen on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've gotten in a state where Elf Anywhere doesn't realize it's not launching. So let's just save a page real quick. Call it demo. And we will publish this to the local web root. Oh, but I'm running Alpha Cloud, so we'll live test it. On the development server. Did I say I'm running Alpha Cloud? I'm running Community Edition.
Yep. I was trying to work that one out. It was
my bad.
No problem.
So here we go. There's my download. I don't know why it's not triggering that.
All right, it should be firing that event. Oh,
It should be firing that event. Maybe it doesn't fire that one in this particular case, which in my mind kind of breaks the paradigm that I assumed that existed for that one. But for that one, yeah, some investigation would be required. You would need to know when the file came back for download.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could show your message. So I apologize. That's not a good answer, but it's the one I tried to use.
Not a problem. Okay, here's another good one. There are times when you have a ton of action JavaScripts on a UX, but finding or remembering where you use them can be challenging. Is there a way that you can easily see where your script is being called or referenced, like what field, what button, what event?
Sort of.
Document that. Okay.
It's sort of. In the menu here, there's an option to show a summary of all the JavaScript code for event handlers.
Mm-hmm.
So you could click that, and you can see here I've got a run action message box in an abstract click. But what you see is not here is all the code I put in that control bar. So this can get you some of the information you need, client-side event handlers and such, but you're not really going to find it here. That said, if you know what the code implementation is, you can use the XBasic tab over here to search for it.
Ooh.
And this is the XBasic that creates your UX. This is all the code under the hood to do it. So you could come in here, and here I see I'm in a control bar definition, and there's some show click message that's got some JavaScript in it that looks like the action I'm running. So this is a way you can find things.
You could do a find for your, like if you did all your JavaScript as actions, right? Then you could do a find in this.
You could search
field.
for it in here. Yeah. Be aware that if you accidentally delete something in here, it's going to affect your component. Editing here edits your UX. So just be very cautious when you're in here, because there's no There's no undo in here.
Okay, dangerous
So
tab
yeah.
to work in. Maybe
Approach with
copy,
caution. I mean, if you know what you're doing, by all means. Like if you're
maybe
like, oh no, this
copy
is supposed
paste
to
it
be
to another
message
document
box
like this or
2.
something.
I need to
Okay,
fix
I see
that.
what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, be careful.
So
Okay.
I mean, you can change it in here. Just be aware that that's going to happen when you go back to settings. It's
Okay,
going to recompute your X from whatever you did over here on this side.
that's good to know. Let's see what else we've got here. Is there, let's see, I'm going to stick to JavaScript ones just for now. There was one more. I just need to find it here. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you were actually, you showed off one of the actions you showed was the sort of that generic error message, or the message
Message box. Yeah.
right? So people were asking, are there, what are the configuration settings behind that? Can I like dynamically pass a message into a message box like that? Maybe from a variable or something like that? Or
Yeah.
can I offer different button selections like OK, cancel, and no, or something like that? I don't know.
Yes, you can. So
Okay.
I left the defaults here, but there's 2 ways to define buttons for message box. You can pick from this list of
Uh-huh.
predefined options, or you can actually recommend you start from here. So you have yes or no, right? But then beyond that, you can come down here and say, oh, I don't want this to say yes. I want this to say like, okay. And, definitely.
Mhm.
And then change the appearance here. And this gives you some control over those buttons that are shown. You can add JavaScript to execute when the yes button or no button is clicked, and that corresponds to these 2 right here. You can dynamically set the message box text, but I believe the only way you can do that is to convert this to text mode.
Okay.
So if you wanted to dynamically set the text in here,
Yeah.
you'd have to convert it to text mode. So if that was the thing you wanted to do, I would recommend you set up everything else that you want to do with it first. And then when you get to the point where you're like, I want this to be populated from a control, convert it to text mode, and then come in here
Right. Because
and
that's a
just
one.
set up
It's
a
a. It's.
message,
Mhm.
copy that message out of here as like your first step, like this.
Yeah.
Make sure you add your message variable in. So at this point now, you can do whatever you want with message, and then it'll get passed into this code here that actually does the displaying of the message box.
Very cool. And the reason you suggested that you set everything up first is because this is a one-way trip, right? When you go
Yeah,
from
it's a one-way trip. You can't go
when
back
you
to the
pick which
builder
one.
once you've done this.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's nice. Is there some more you want to talk about on message boxes, or should we go to different questions?
I mean, I showed message box, but
I'm
the
sorry,
availability in here,
JavaScript defense is what
yeah.
I
So
meant to
like
say.
everything is available to you with JavaScript actions. And you can import and export them. You can manage them in one place, just like if you have JavaScript functions that you're calling. So take a look at it. You can even call a JavaScript action in action JavaScript. There's a JavaScript action in here.
Called run action.
Run action right there. Click OK. The action you want to run is one of the ones you define. So
Superb.
even if you're in a place where you can use action JavaScript, you can still run your JavaScript actions.
Cool. Excellent. All right, so let's get into a couple of the other questions. This one I think I also saw come into the guides today. Remember, a quick reminder, you can always send emails to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com. It goes into our ticketing system and you'll get an answer for us. And often we'll actually use those in our, if we get a lot of similar questions, they do tend to show up in our webinars. So the question that we got here today has to do with column headings on a list. Let me just find that question real quick. And it had to do with having a column heading on a list that does not scroll. So let me just find the actual wording of the question so that I can do it justice here. Here we go. Is there a way to easily, so the question is there a way to easily fix the column titles on a list control so that when you scroll the list vertically, the column titles remain fixed at the top of the list and don't scroll off, just like you've done here?
Like this. So this is a column or list layout, and this is what they do by default. So I'm wondering, I'm a little confused if why they wouldn't stay fixed if it's something else they're trying to fix.
That is a good question.
So in that case, ooh, that's my control bar. If we go take a look at the list properties, in here, there is several options for headers. So there's a data header that's shown above the data that scrolls with the data. And then there's a fixed header, which doesn't move. So if you wanted to do a fixed header and it wasn't the column headings which should already stay fixed, you can come in here and define your HTML, your style, and any additional class names you want to apply to it.
Okay.
Using that setting.
Very cool. Thank you. We answered that one about calling message boxes. Yes, that one about Excel. Someone's putting out that LibreOffice works great for opening Excel files. Just a tip there. Okay, here's a question. What does a radio button return in a UX component?
It's gonna depend on the radio button.
Okay, well
let's go take a look.
Yeah.
Let's make country a radio button here.
Okay.
Character, text box, radio button. There we go. We'll go define the choices here. We're going to use a dynamic option. Our sources are Northwind's database. We're going to select the country from the customers table. And we're going to display the same value we store. Click OK. And just so it's easier to read, we'll do vertical. Go over to live preview. Wait for that to load. So you can see here is as I pick different users here, showing me that. So if I click Chrome Debugger, make that a little bit smaller, and we go over to console, and I type in DLG. This is the generated object name for the dialog.object placeholder control in your code. This is dynamic, so what it is here is not going to be what it is when you publish your app, so you should always use a placeholder. But if you say get value, and I believe it was country, it returns a string, in this case France. So just the value.
Nice.
And if it's a checkbox, I believe it's an array of values, because a checkbox can have more than one value.
And let's see, we have just one more question here. So if you have anyone has more questions, want to type them in, that would be a good time. Okay, so the question, we were talking about this just before the webinar, which was, can you control what's displayed in the address bar and in the tab of a browser when you publish to the alpha app server? And I'm going to take the easy one, if you don't mind. And the tab displays what's in the title of the page. So if you are in, so when you're building your page, you just set the page title to what you want to appear in the tab. So that one's simple. When it comes to changing what's going on in the address bar, those are up. In fact, Sarah's got the setting right there for page title, which by default says UX, but you can change that to whatever you want. Changing the address bar is a little bit trickier. And Sarah, do you want to explain a little bit about how that's done? I And that's why I'm giving
I
you
know
that
it can be
question.
done, but I don't know how it's
I don't
done.
know how it could be done.
It has
I,
something to do with what your server interprets as the path to your pages and stuff like that. So
okay.
it's not as simple as just writing some JavaScript to edit the URL.
Although it could be. I mean, I was taking a quick peek at
Yeah.
Stack Exchange, and it looked like there are some ways that looks like modern browsers do support JavaScript making those changes.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
you
that's gonna
might look
require
at
some
that,
effort.
but that's going to require some effort either way. Yep.
Yeah.
And it looks like different browsers handle it differently. So you're going to have to actually ask what.
That's the other gotcha.
That's the other gotcha, right? Is your code is going to have to figure out what it's talking to. But people have done that, so you just take a look for that. It looks like you probably could do it with JavaScript. In terms of server configuration, I'm not sure, but we can. We'll pass that on to our development team and see what they think about how.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that with the documentation site for a while, and the problems we've run into about with the URL have been enough to deter me from finishing that project.
Oh,
Yeah.
in fairness, that one was not written in alpha anywhere. That was a different.
No, but the approach is the same.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
it's going to be the same because it's a web
Mhm.
app basically, and so is your Alpha Anywhere application. So that particular um,
Right.
wanting to do that is going to be the same regardless of what platform you're using to build it.
Super. Oh, here's a great question. Just came in. How do you test a UX that has a login? It says in live preview and working preview, it says it's not supported. And this is going to be for a mobile UX for a mobile application.
So you can use Live Test, which will
Okay,
launch it in the browser with the security framework running,
great.
which is why we added it, so
Oh,
you can
yes.
test your
Yep.
security stuff. In terms of on your mobile device, you're gonna have to get it installed somehow, either
Question
through.
is live test available in the community edition as
Yeah,
well?
this is
Oh,
community
because that's what we're
edition.
looking at. Superb. Great. So live test is the answer for that one.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. And you can live test locally, or if you have a Alpha Cloud, you can live test on Alpha Cloud.
Mhm. This is a very general question. I'll throw it out here anyway. General question. What's the best way to start building a mobile database app in Alpha? So I'm going to presume that by mobile database app, and the person who asked me the question can, like, what's the best practice approach to start designing and building one?
Oh, I would start with
Start with a wireframe is what I
start
would
with the
start.
wireframe, hash it out on
Yeah.
paper what you want.
Yep.
And then once you figure that out, start with some test data. It doesn't have to be in a database. You can use static data if you know um, what it is you want to collect.
Yeah.
All of the lists, all of the lists support static data as a data source, and there's a feature called convert list data source to static data, and if you're in static, convert list data source to SQL database that you can use to then take your static mockup or whatever and start hashing out what your database needs to look like.
Yes. Okay. Superb. Good advice. We're actually going to go, and someone said, "Hey, can you share a link to wireframing and stuff?" Yeah, let's talk.
Um,
Let's talk a little bit. I think balsamic seems to be one of the more popular ones. Just,
yeah, there's a lot out there. I like
yeah,
drawing on paper.
I like.
Which is a bit hard to link to. But
Yeah,
if you can find a notebook at your local office supply store, it's a great
yeah,
place to look for one.
yeah. I guess take pictures of it on your phone if you're sharing it with a client.
Oh yeah.
But balsamic. Actually, do you mind just popping over to that website real quick?
Uh
David?
yeah, let me find it. Don't forget about DevCon. I'm gonna search over here.
Okay.
Just so that I find the right one. Let's see here.
Wireframing is such a huge, and I think we really need to do entire webinar probably just on wireframing. It is such a huge advantage. So this is the balsamic
There we go.
tool, and basically it's got a whole bunch of things that you drag and drop onto a canvas, right? It's got buttons and controls and text boxes and lists and grids and all kinds of things. And what you do is you sort of arrange them on the screen as you imagine how the interface is going to be laid out. And it's really probably the best way to get started doing that, because then you really have you could show it to whoever your client is or whoever you're building the app for. They can sort of really get a sense for what that's going to be like, and then you go from the wireframe and you start building it directly into alpha right after that. That's always been the process that we followed. So start with a great wireframe. And I
Yeah.
like balsamic. There are other tools as well. This one I happen to like a lot
There's a lot of tools out there. I've seen people
Yeah.
use PowerPoint.
Yeah, you could use PowerPoint too. If you had you just need to have a collection of shapes that you want to use. Miro is, oh, someone else is suggesting Miro works for wireframes. That's just a whole bunch more. Does Alpha have some cool mobile UI examples to be inspired by besides Transform?
Oh,
That's a great
that
question.
Transform is so inspiring.
We have a lot.
That's a lovely comment.
Thank you very much about that. Yeah,
Thank you.
we do actually have better examples than that. Send us an email. We're going to try to get those up onto our website as well. So yeah, we do have some nice things that have been built by us, and nice things that have been built by our customers and partners. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, what is okay, this is a long one. Let's get another one. How do you dynamically change the icon in a button?
Ah,
Ah,
how do you set the button icon?
yeah.
Well, it's stored in the source
Selects
property,
automatically.
but having seen this question come into guides previously, I will
Let's
take
check
the
in a few
opportunity to
questions
offer
first.
several solutions.
Oh, cool. Terrific.
Yeah, so I know the question is how you change it on a button.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ideas I suggested with that is maybe not using a button, but a button list.
Okay.
So add a button. There we go. And the reason the button list. There we go. Sorry, I need to change this to image or image followed by text.
Mm-hmm.
So the button list lets you define different options for the icon and the pressed icon, and then some other icons. And the reason I bring this up is because in the particular use case that I saw, they wanted to display one image for one state and another image for a different state. There we go. So I click on my button, it does something and it toggles the state. So whatever that thing that it does is going to be toggled with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why you might want to consider using a button list as opposed to a button is because you don't need to do anything to keep that button state on. So this is not toggled, it's on. It shows my other icon. I click it again. Oh, it doesn't toggle off. So,
Oops. Okay.
but you can, deselect, allow null selection, true. There we go. I believe that will let you deselect it. But that's one way to get.
Yep.
There we go. On, off.
Okay.
On, off.
So,
So you
well, it's
can,
referred to as a button
yeah,
list. You can do a single
you can
button in a
you can
button
do a
list.
single button, right?
Yeah.
You can change the button, and let's just do a button here. We'll make it image followed by text. We'll give it an initial image. And I'm going to use SVG icon. Let's go, I don't know, question mark. Okay. And then I'm just going to use one of these other ones to select a different icon. But I'm not going to save it. House. Okay. I'm going to copy that. Cancel. So you can change that icon. I'm going to add another button. Buttonception over here. And we're going to quickly pop over to live preview so that I can get some information about the button itself. No, I want Notepad. Trusty Notepad, save that off for later. Open the Chrome debugger. There we go. This is called button icon. I need that information. And then I need to go look something up in documentation. Search for a icon. That's not what I want, I don't think. I think it might be this one. I don't know if I can answer this question in the time we have left.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So
if you want to send, please
but,
send that into guides.
But the long answer is, if you want to use an SVG icon, you have to convert this. Mm-hmm. You have to convert this into the actual image. There we go. And this is hard to read because it's a giant block of text, but that's what the A5U icon namespace does. It takes this text, which is how we tell the system what icon to load. Mm-hmm. It then gets it and pulls all the SVG out and generates whatever you need to do and gives you that back. And then you go and insert that into your button. And the button itself is, we have a button class in here, and it's got some settings on it as well. It has an icon. And there may be options in here. You may be able to use this by calling the get control on the button. So you get a button object that has these methods, and then set the icon, and then refresh it to get it to regenerate itself to display the new icon. So, cool. Yeah. Well, after all that explanation, I feel like the button list is going to be your easiest method to do it, because you don't have to go through all that other stuff I've just described, and I cannot demonstrate adequately within the time allowed here.
That's quite fine. I think, yeah, do send that question into us. I think what they would like to do is have like a button that they can turn on and off the icon. Like if something is loading, they can just
toggle the icon. There, you could also do a similar thing with images. I believe you can have an image that has a
an image with an on property
defines what image to show. So you could pick your images that way and then have some sort of hidden control that when you click it, it sets a value in that control and then changes the image that's shown.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left, and here's what I think that we can do. Can you have a button that does different things based on some field value?
Yes.
Like if I press the button. Okay, thank you. Definitely you got it done in the
Easy
time
question.
allotted. Now I
Yeah.
have a request. Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah, let's do that.
So you have a field and you're clicking the button, and depending on something that's in the field, you want to do one action or perform some other action.
Let's do drop down.
Okay.
Sure. Drop down box.
It's a good name for it.
Ooh, that's not what I wanted. I want choices.
Choices.
Okie dokie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should have done this in the other one. Let's do it here. And then we're going to change play action here. Just delete that. And we're going to start by get the value from drop down box 1. I'm going to right click here and just select it. And I'm going to have to Google something real quick because I can never remember this. All right, it's switch. Okay. Switch or select. When working with XBasic and TPL and JavaScript, I always forget which one is which. So switch will do a thing based on the value. In the case 1 is message 1. Break, always break. Case message 2. Case export. And default will put up an alert. Not implemented. Implemented. All right.
Yeah.
So value is message 1. I want to run message box. Okay. If it's message 2, I want to insert the code to run message box 2. And if it's my export, I want to run my export. Otherwise, I'll get this alert. It's not implemented. Save that. And we will go look at that. Yeah, let's go look at it in live test. Or this works. So there's my drop down. So message 1, hello there. Message 2 is going to be the same thing because they're a duplication of each other. And then my export runs my export.
Which it is. Oh, very cool.
That's what you can do there.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time, but we're not out of questions. So please send them over to guides@alphasoftware.com. We'll be happy to get back to you. Sarah, thank you very much for presenting today. I want to thank everyone who showed up, especially those who asked questions and kept it lively. Again, you know our email address should you wish to get in touch. We hope to see you next week at our next Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and goodbye.